trying again. A little snafu there. It's been a hot minute. It's been on the podcast. Welcome back, everybody. CrossFit Rife podcast. Jason Fernandez here with Cassidy, Ballensky, head coach, programmer. We could talk about this for hours, man. But so I wanted to bring Cassidy on and talk a little bit about programming. I recently took the adaptive athlete course, which is a really good insight into programming. It's been here a long time, has seen the evolution of what we do for programming. Recently got hired on the seminar staff. Now I gets to wear the red shirt. And I'm just curious about your experience there as well, and just what that's been like. So, yeah, let's roll. But first, kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about your time here.
Yeah, the first intro is better, but that one will do.
I thought so too.
Yeah. What are you going to do? So I'm originally from Boise, Idaho. And I joined the Navy out of high school and kind of stumbled upon CrossFit when I was doing high school sports. I played football and ran track, and it wasn't really CrossFit there. It's just what USC's, University of Southern California's football team was doing, just their strength and conditioning. So our football coach played around with it, and that was my first kind of introduction to functional training, or is more just like HIIT training, which later I come to find out is functional training was what we were doing. But enjoyed it a lot more. Got out of high school. After I joined the Navy, I was still looking for something competitive to do, and I was still just doing the regular bodybuilding stuff like everybody else. And went to another gym in town, moved elsewhere. I was looking to do CrossFit, and first time I met you was, I think it was a year before I actually joined here. And then you kind of actually recommended me to go to 757 because they just had better hours. And
we've talked about this before, and I know you're not going to be butthurt, but like I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's all right. I was very non-rememberable,
forgettable.
Yeah,
Forgettable. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just your average dude. So it's just their hours
were we in
better.
the old space?
Yeah, it was very, very end over there.
108.
Mm-hmm. So went to 757 for about 6 months or so, deployed, came back, moved, and I lived closer to this spot, so I was like, I'll try this place out again. And I remember the first day I came in.
But you did go there?
Yeah, I was at 757 for 6-8 months, something like that. And that was when they were on 22nd Street before they moved. And then came back here when I moved here, and you had mentioned something about, like, you remembered me by my tattoo on my leg. And I was like, okay, like, that's pretty cool that you remembered me after a very small conversation we had 12, 18 months later, whatever it was, and stuck around.
I say that to everybody that has a tattoo on their leg.
Yeah. Oh, you've been here before, right? Nope, just moved here yesterday. So I thought that was kind of cool. And that actually kind of meant a lot to me, so I stayed here. I think I joined in June or July of that year and took my level 1 just because I enjoyed being in the gym and I wanted to be in the gym more, and got really inspired by the red shirts at my level 1.
Where'd you take the level 1?
It was up in Herndon. Up at Fairfax.
I didn't do it, did I?
No, it was, I don't remember everybody about it. I remember...
Maggie had to have been there.
Nope, EC.
Oh, really?
Jason Ackerman. Chris was there.
Okay. Russell?
Yep.
Got it.
And I can't remember the other 2 people. There's a shorter girl, and then another dude about my height. But took my level 1, came back, wanted to intern. Wanted to start coaching, and then you let me intern. A couple months later, I started working, and years later took my level 2, and years later took my level 3, and interned for HQ, and here we are.
What's our total time frame then?
I've been 5.5 years. So I've been doing CrossFit coming up on about 9 years now, 9 or 10 years, and then I've been coaching. Including my internship is just over 5.5, not like since I've actually been hired, about 5.5 years now.
I don't think I think that's probably an appropriate timeline. So for anybody who's curious about that, I think 5 years of consistent coaching is probably sufficient enough to potentially throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah, and I still don't think even when you want to, you kind of pushed me to do it because I was like, oh, I want to do it, but I'm not ready. Oh, like I don't feel prepared. And it was kind of like hey, you're never going to be ready. And it's like, okay, that's fair enough. So we're never going to feel like you're ready is really the better way to put it. So it's like, okay, applied and did well enough to get picked up. So I probably would have just kept making excuses and pushing it on if it, I think more or less you almost called me out on it, which helped out.
I mean, I did the same
bumping
thing
down the road.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and because I was having conversations with people very similar. I was like, well, I don't have time, and then I don't know if anybody had to poke me in the eye about it, but I kind of came to that same conclusion where I said, I'm never going to have time. Like, I don't. At what point am I going to get more time? And that's just not a real thing. So I just did it. Same thing. I don't remember. I've probably been coaching about the same amount of time though, because I'm coming up on 11 years.
Yeah.
So I was and I'm coming up on 6 years. So it was probably about 5 years of coaching. You know, I don't think I coached the first year, but I started coaching pretty quickly after that. Okay, cool. So largely I want to talk about programming because I know a lot of people are just interested in how we do programming here and why we do certain things and a lot of that. But I think context is probably a little valuable here with regard to this conversation in general. So when we started the gym in 2009, I think I wrote programming continuously for about for probably about 6 years. So I wrote the programming just literally out of my brain, and I went through a lot of different iterations of that. We played around with a lot of stuff. Some stuff was appropriate, some stuff was not appropriate. We did some West Side stuff. We did some Wendler stuff in there. We've done a lot of different things. And then I think, when did we use warm up and workout?
2016 to 17.
Yeah, so I think I thought it was longer than that, but maybe it was just a year.
It's about a year and a half.
So then we outsourced it, and because this question always comes up, should I outsource the programming or not? And the answer is always, it depends. It depends on a lot of things. But I was burnt out. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I trust Pat Barber and Taz. I've known Pat for a long time on seminar staff. I think he programs really well. And I learned a lot by just not. And when we did that, I made a commitment to myself. I said specifically, I am not going to touch this programming, even if I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And probably I maybe made a couple tweaks here and there just because they were logistically not doable. But for the most part, I did not touch that programming for a year. And it was like anything else. It exposed a lot of things that I wasn't doing. Nothing crazy. I mean, we're covering the basics, but there's some, what I like to call it, maybe the vegetables, not the meat and potatoes of the programming, but the vegetables and stuff. I probably didn't have enough variance in there. And then you and I had talked about getting into it or bringing it back in house, and then I gave that to you, and then we review it, but that's largely your baby at this point. I kind of loosely have my hands in it, but not much. So
yeah, there's a little bit of.
I'll throw a theme at you.
What do you want to see this month?
Yeah,
is there anything special? Any holidays or memorials coming up? And do you want to see more of something this month? And just about every single time, it's no, do whatever. And
well, I do what I think would have been valuable to me, which was just somebody who's an objective party from the outside, not necessarily tweaking the program, but just here's some things to consider from a 30,000-foot view about what's coming up, what things should we be looking at? Is there hero workouts we haven't touched in a while, stuff like that? And because if you don't have somebody looking at your program, it's real easy to kind of get in your own little groove and just do your own thing. But talk to me a little bit about, because I don't actually even think we've gone too deep into like what your process is for programming. I know you do an excellent job, probably better than I do. You test a lot more workouts than I did.
Yeah. So what do you want to start on? How I write it? Or
either one, whatever.
Yeah, let's start with how I write it first. For the most part, I kind of look at what's the rest of the community doing, or what they've been doing, or what direction I think it's going. I spend a lot of time kind of looking at main site, of course. If you're not looking at main site, I think you're doing yourself a disservice because they're the ones doing it better than anybody.
Did you know Greg is writing programming? Like, he's writing a lot of the programming right now.
Not.
Yeah. Greg is Coach Greg Glassman, everybody. And no, he and I are not good enough friends for me to call him Greg.
Someday.
Maybe.
Probably not. But I look at what they're doing. I look at a lot of the other kind of just bigger communities. Most of them are like competitive. Things like, Comp Train and Invictus and Misfit and Team Soul. And, there's 20 different people. I just kind of look at it and see, are they all kind of following the same path? Are they all doing different things? Are they throwing in different movements that I've never seen? Are they doing a lot of strength versus this? And then after that, I kind of just start looking at movements we haven't done recently. I always try and hit the big ones of cleans and snatches and thrusters and pull-ups and muscle-ups, handstand push-ups, like all those. But I kind of just, what's something we haven't seen recently? What's a movement that we don't see that often, like medicine ball cleans. I like doing medicine ball cleans because it's not that it's easy to teach or see, but it's easy to avoid because it's not as sexy as a barbell or dumbbell or kettlebell. So I like doing things like that, or sumo to the high pulls. Everybody likes to go straight to the heavy weight stuff. And then once I kind of have an idea of, well, I haven't done thrusters this month or clusters, we haven't seen this in 4, 5, 6 weeks, I kind of just start going, it's going to kind of sound funny, but I kind of just take the map and I just go, this day we're doing thrusters, and then like this day we're going to do push press, and this day we're going to do wall balls or whatever else. And then after I kind of throw those basic movements in there, kind of start looking like, okay, what would be good with this? Or on the other side, what would be really gross to pair with this? And then pair something else with it, and then I kind of get my idea with it. And once I kind of have let's say 3 out of the 5 days, if we're looking at just a week, or 3 out of the 6 if we're looking Monday through Sunday, then I kind of start, well, this would look better here. Well, this would look better here. Well, then I have too much lower body compared to high body, and then pull versus push and all that. So it really just starts out as blank canvas and just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing where it sticks. And then from there, once you kind of have your general picture, okay, well, let's really tweak into it, and then we'll look at time frames, and we'll look at rep schemes, and we'll look at reps. But I like to first just go through the movements and make sure we're getting as diverse as we can with the movements.
Yeah, I think to some people that would sound kind of random, but I think if you're writing GPP programming, I don't know that there's a better way to start, because I think if you start with a template, you run the risk, because I've done this in the past, of like limiting yourself on things that you can put in there. So I always found it beneficial when I was doing it to kind of start with a couple things that I wanted to see, and then I start filling it in. And then I think my personal opinion is where the real kind of art or skill of programming is once you've kind of got some themes in there and some of those other things, the evaluation and tweaking of that once you've got, I don't know, call it a 40% product on the canvas, that is where like the actual skill comes in, because it's pretty easy to kind of get 40% up there. I think the last 60% is where the skill, the experience comes in, the intent comes in, and you can really start dialing in and having some things that you started with that are not actually what you end with. Like I started with a workout that kind of looked like this, and then as we kind of morphed everything, I'm like, okay, I want to switch that based on what we're trying to achieve, and I'm going to massage this a little bit, but a lot of it would still remain. Or maybe I'll make it longer or go heavier or something like that.
No, there's been plenty of times where I get the week done, and like maybe I'll have the whole month done, and I'll just kind of look back and I'll just wipe an entire week out because it just didn't fit with the rest of the month. And kind of once I have before I start getting into 2 reps, I kind of like to, for me, see time frames. And so when I'm looking at it in a giant macro scale of it, like when I present it to you and it's super colorful and really pretty, it's different colors represent different time frames. And so I make sure, we're hitting a lot, a good amount of short, a lot of in the middle, some longer, some heavier, just to make sure I have a good balance of it. And then once I have my time frame kind of set, then I can go in and, okay, if I want it to take 12 minutes and like in my head, this is a 12-minute workout, what are my rep schemes or my rounds or what I'm going to do to make sure I can make it, a 12-minute workout, or, 5 rounds in 12 minutes, that kind of idea. And that helps to tweak the reps, the time, the movements, the rounds. Instead of maybe on a squat, maybe I go to a power, switch that around, however you want to look at it.
Did you find, because I think people kind of fall generally in one of 2 camps. They start programming and they take a liking to it, or they find it incredibly difficult to wrap their brain around.
It started, I still love doing it. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it. But it started out as, this is super difficult. What
was difficult about it?
Not biasing. When I'm writing,
not doing shit you want to do.
yeah. There'd be days where, I'd see a barbell every single day, or the opposite. I wouldn't see a barbell for 2 weeks, or, there's a lot of high skill stuff. And, I present it to you and I'm like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever written. And you're just like, this is crap. Like, we're doing muscle ups every other day. Like, what are we doing? Like, all right, I'll come back tomorrow. And, it was difficult looking at myself and kind of at the gym in a whole of what are we avoiding? What are we not good at? It's really easy to put in stuff to make everybody happy. Like, I'm sure everybody would be happy to just do, heavy cleans every day and max out this, or, just do kind of AMRAPs of easy movements that everybody's going to have a super high score, heavy weight. But it's not super easy to be like, hey, as a whole, we aren't good at handstand walking, or as a whole, like, we don't do just a lot of one arm stuff or overhead stability stuff. So it's attacking it myself and making myself, because I do exactly what I write. I do the programming here. And is this something I would avoid if I wasn't doing it with the group? And if the answer is yes, it's probably going to get programmed in there. And I ask a lot of people throughout the month, like, hey, what's something you haven't seen in a while, or what's something I'm missing, just to get more perspective on it from just me and you, because we don't do it every single day because caught up with work or what have you. But the people are doing the workouts 4 or 5, potentially 6 times a week. They have the best insight of, we haven't done thrusters in a long time. We haven't done sandbags in a long time.
I think it's important that you do the program. Like, I do the programming here, and I probably don't train as much as I would like, but I would. There's very few things in here that I see on there, and I look at it, and my first reaction is, that's dumb. Which is different than I don't like that. Yeah. So I'm totally okay with I don't like that. I'm not okay with that's dumb. There's not a whole lot of thought put in there, or that's kind of what they call the any asshole workout, which is like you just threw a bunch of shit on paper, and this is what I came up with. But I think it's important that you do that, and then you do the workouts, and then we kind of bounce things around. So for those of you who don't know, so Cassidy writes and pretty much has, I don't know, probably a 85% done product, and then we sit down and we look at it. I'll kind of give my 2 cents, kind of massage maybe a couple things, or throw some different ideas in there, or just maybe see some themes in there that you get blinded to if you're got your face in the spreadsheet, and then make some minor suggestions there and tweak it, and then go from there. But I think doing the programming is super key, man. From a standpoint of buy-in, from a standpoint of understanding the effects of the program. And I think we do a better job than most of actually like getting a really broad spectrum. And this is the key phrase, without jamming multiple workouts in one day.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to get a really broad spectrum if you just decide to put a skill session, a Metcon, and a strength in every single day. I think it's far more difficult to write one workout a day that has good variance that still gets people fit. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I know I test out probably at least a quarter of the workouts the month before.
That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah, there's a lot of the workouts where, I put them together, and in my head, it's a workout that I think is going to take 15 minutes. And then, well, let's actually see if I did this right. If I want it to be, a fire breathing just leg burner, or if I want it to just be sustained continuous output, I got to test it and see. And a lot of times almost every time I've tested a workout, I go back and modify it somehow, just because it wasn't what I had in my mind when I wrote it, or how it's supposed to fit for the rest of the week. And like, there's some people who might be able to do it, but I'm looking at the majority of the gym. If everybody scales it appropriately, are they going to be hitting it the same way? And if I have to rewrite it to make sure it gets there, the only way to find out is if I do it. I can't really use the 6 a.m. as my guinea pigs, or the 5:30 as my guinea pigs. And be like, oh shit, okay, 9 a.m. we're doing it this way, or noon we're doing it this way. And
I mean, that is a real scenario in some gyms, though. Like, I've done that, like, way back in the day, where I'd write a workout. It would totally eat shit for the 6 a.m., and I would have to just literally change it going in to the 9 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, I like to test a lot of the ones where it could usually go one of two ways. It could either go exactly how I want it, or it could go, 100 different directions, which isn't the target. So those are the ones that I definitely like to test. And I even test it with different scales or asking people to test it for me. Like I know I've asked Zoe to do some workouts for me. Like, hey, if you're going to the gym, do this for me if you don't mind. And he'll come back and tell me like, this is how it went. Okay, cool. It's either exactly what I want or I'll change it.
One of the things I picked up, I would generally, it wouldn't happen a lot, but I would get into these ruts when I was writing programming where I would start to get burnt out, and then a lot of the things that I like to would just go in the programming. But one of the things that was exposed to me when we were working with Pat with Warm Up and Workout was I did not do. I mean, our programming was virtually devoid of any single arm, single leg work, and carries of all types, like overhead, one arm, front rack, farmer's carry, all that stuff. And that stuff has a massive benefit to general population, just for good old-fashioned joint stability, particularly at the shoulder. And I think you've done a pretty good job of keeping those kind of things in there. And, I mean, let's be real honest, they suck.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. Who is it? Jeff Marks was telling me the other day over at North End, one of the hardest workouts he's ever done was the assault bike and hang from the pull-up bar.
He calls it his Jesus workout. He calls it the crucifixion. And, it was, that was a lot of how I program a lot of things. It's because we did woo-wo for so long. There's a lot of things of just hanging from a bar, like working that grip while you can't breathe, or single arm overhead carries while one's down on the side. And what's funny is we started playing around with that, and then what happened at regionals a couple years ago, it was one overhead, one on the shoulder doing a lunge like that. And they started, I remember when we were doing it, there was dumbbells, like blew our minds, like we're doing dumbbell thrusters, we're doing dumbbell power snatches. Then what do you know, that year that's the all dumbbell regional and open.
Dude, I'm talking to all of you guys. There was a lot of complaining about that for about 6 months coming into the open, and then the open was just dumbbells.
Yeah.
And like everybody here was prepared for that.
They're like, oh man, I know what to do now.
Yeah, I know exactly how this feels. I mean, granted, we didn't win the open, but I mean, like everybody was prepared for that. Like they were ready to use dumbbells, and dumbbells have like a really good utility in my mind, as do kettlebells. But okay. Have you found yourself, like, what are the pitfalls that you see for program, like for yourself?
Pitfalls in it?
Like, is there something when you write when you're writing the programming every month, like, I need to be aware of this, otherwise I'll do X.
I tend to put in a lot of high skill stuff, whether it's handstand walking, handstand push-ups, muscle-ups, support, ring supports, ring dips, you name it.
Sometimes I have to be like, hey, man, everybody's going to quit.
Not a lot of stuff that's just like, put your head down and just keep bashing until you get through the wall. Like Fran, like that's a classic example. I think I personally like it because there's once you can do the movements and you can do them without thinking, there's no thought to that workout. It's just go faster. And I usually fall into a trap of not doing that kind of stuff enough, or trying to do it where it, with some type of heavy weight or skill or what have you, that doesn't let you actually go through, just the pain cave, just suffering, eventually a lot of time I try to make things too cute, I think, instead of just work. And
the sexy stuff is the devil, man.
Yeah. And
it's the devil.
That's why I like when we have our sit downs every month, is because a lot of times, like when I do write, I only write program for maybe 30 to 45 minutes at a time, and I just have to close my laptop and go away, and then I'll go to work, or I'll go work out, or I'll literally do anything else, and then I'll come back and fresh set of eyes, and okay, well that was stupid, why did I write that? And I'll come back to it and
I used to do that all the time, where I would just get stuck and I would just be like, God, I can't look at this anymore.
Yeah.
I'd be looking at it for hours, and then I would come back and look at it the next day and I would be like, I did thrusters 4 days in a row, and I don't know how I didn't see that.
That just happened actually with February, right before like we sat down and talked about it. I looked it over one time and I was like, we're deadlifting 4 days in a row. I was like, that's not. It was like dumbbell, kettlebell, barbell, heavy barbell. And I was like, I did not see barbell back to heavy barbell. I was like, It happens.
It does happen, and it's not the end of the world. But I think a lot of people don't understand how that happens, and you wouldn't understand how that happens unless you write programming.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking at just this endless spreadsheet with movements and rep schemes. I mean, it's really easy to get lost in there, and that's why I think it's good to have. Don't put yourself in a time crunch. There's nothing worse than writing programming in a time crunch, and then B, have a fresh set of eyes put on it. Like have somebody who also knows what they're doing come in, take a look at it, evaluate it, and just give you a fresh perspective on some stuff in there. But yeah, I think I think the holds and the static and the carrying, I think all that stuff is like what was the other one that everybody didn't catch me off guard, but caught everybody else off guard was the shoot throughs.
I thought you were going to say devil's press.
I don't think that catches anybody off guard. I think everybody's like pretty aware.
That one caught you off guard when we did that one together.
My lack of fitness caught me off guard, not the devil's press. Like
blame the devil's press.
Yeah.
You went to regionals.
I did go to regionals. I beat you, Ben Smith. Somebody else just brought that up recently. It was super funny. I forgot what it was. Anyway, so the other thing I want to talk about is a little bit about. And this will kind of segue, but first I want to talk about writing programming that kind of starts at the top and then trickles down, and then what that looks like as you start wrapping your brain around doing some of the adaptive stuff, which is a course that we're going to try to do here sooner rather than later.
Do you mean like top and then scaling down?
Yeah. So for instance, so there's a lot of people who at some point would hopefully watch this podcast and are like, hey, I can't do muscle ups or handstand walks. And so talk a little bit about scaling and how you go about writing programming, and then do you take scaling into consideration first, or is that secondary?
Both. It's not. It kind of flip-flops. Sometimes I'll write a workout with the scaling version in mind and then scale up for the RX version, but most of the time it's usually RX and then we go up and down. So if you don't know how we do things here, and we actually got this from Wuo, which is I think probably one of the best things we ever got from him, was the three divisions, if you want to call them, like RX plus, RX, and then fitness. So RX is what most gyms would write as just their normal workout of the day, and then RX plus is tailored for elite athletes, the people who are going to regionals or the people who are consistently scoring in the top 100 in their region. It's heavy stuff. It's hard stuff. I've
had some questions about that, about why would you write that? Because I'm gonna take a stab at this, but I would venture to say that less than 5% of the gym touches that top.
That's probably generous too.
Yeah, I would agree.
5% is probably generous. Yeah.
So why would I do that?
Well, you can always scale down. It's hard to scale up. It's easier to scale down, and everything should be infinitely scalable down. And I write it that way. If Matt Fraser comes in the gym, he needs to be able to do a workout without completely changing the RX version. So there's already something written for them, and it gives us a good blueprint to start with. So what I like how we do things here is we're not married to RX plus, RX, or fitness. They're just kind of blueprints, and then we tailor them to the individual up or down. So there's a lot of people who RX is maybe too difficult for them, and then fitness is too easy for them. So we kind of take pieces of both and make it into their own unique baby for them. And same thing goes for the RX Plus and RX. Some days the RXs might not be hard enough for them, but then RX might be too difficult. So then we can kind of go, all right, well, the weights would be something in here. Well, the skills would be somewhere in between here, and we can just merge them to make it perfect for everybody.
That's a lot of times where I fall, where I could probably do most workouts RX. Once it gets into the loading for RX plus, I'm out. I'm out for those loads. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm out for those loads. It's not happening. But there's a lot of times where I'll have a middle weight. Most of the skill stuff I can do at this point, very rarely, depending on the volume, am I going to tap out on that? But the loading is I fall. That's generally where I fall. It is the loading is just I'm that's going to break my back.
Today's a great example of it with the
push press.
The push press and the pull-ups. I saw Shane, who's just a monster with a barbell. Doesn't matter what the movement, if it's a barbell, he just crushes it. gymnastics, on the other hand, it's kind of his weakness, and he knows it. But he took the RX plus weight, which was a 205 push press,
And did
for
regular pull-ups.
30 reps, and did regular pull-ups instead of chest to bar. So it was just the right amount of fatigue for him, because if he would have done it with the 185 or 155, it just might as well just be using an empty barbell for him.
That, and the workout would have ended up being like a kind of a broken workout, because he would have
missed the mark on the stimulus.
But he would have been devastated from the pull-ups, which is not the intent of the workout. Where it's just like, hey, it should be a heavy barbell. Like this barbell should slow you down, even though it's only 3 reps. It should slow you down, not stop you, but it should slow you down. But then I had a lot of people who were I pushed a lot of people heavier today than they wanted, and I don't do this all the time, but I did it today where I made everybody show me their weight, and there's a lot of people who were like, not a lot, but just like 5 pounds under, 10 pounds under where they should be, and I bumped them all. So I think I coached 30 athletes in those 2 morning classes, and I think there was at least 15 variations of that, at least minimum 15 variations of that workout going on today. And I think that's important for people to understand, is that, and we can talk about a little bit about what we did in November too. The intent of the workout is what is important, not the reps, not the weight. Did you hit the intent of the workout? Which is largely, I think we got a lot of positive feedback from that in November. I mean, there's the usual suspects who are unhappy with it.
Nobody's going to be perfectly happy with it, but it is what it is. Like I didn't like change at first. Like I didn't like changing from Woo-O to actually me writing the programming, and now I love it. I didn't like going from barbells to dumbbells. I mean, I'm going to complain about everything. I'm one of them. It is what it is.
Okay. But so talk a little bit about what we did in November.
So in November that was actually really cool. We should do that again.
We will.
In November,
It's happening again, everybody, whether you like Douglas.
What are we talking about? You look cool, Doug, just so you know.
You threw us both off with your handsomeness.
November. Okay, so November, we took away all RX. We took away RX plus scaling. We just wrote one version of the workout, which we'll just call the workout. So we just wrote one version of the workout, and then we gave
So we didn't take away RX. You could still get RX, but it's not the way that
we took away the 3 scale. So we
just
just wrote one version of the workout, and everybody had the opportunity to hit RX no matter how they did the workout, if they hit the intent of the workout. So every day was provided with, you should be finishing the workout between 5 and 15 minutes, or 5 and 12 minutes. You should be getting 15 to 20 rounds on this workout. Like, we gave them a set guide of, this is how the workout should feel. This is what your target at the end of it should be. If you scale appropriately and you hit this, cool, you get RX for the day. If not, if you maybe made it too difficult, and we're going for 10 to 12 minutes, and you finish the workout in 15 minutes, well, you made it too difficult, you missed the mark for the day. You overshot. On the other side, if you made it too easy and you finished the workout in 7 minutes, well, you didn't push it hard enough. So again, you missed the intent by making it too easy on yourself. So we gave some guidelines, but for the most part, we let everybody, pretty much scale themselves. Like,
I thought it was cool, man. I don't remember how I got that idea, but I was like, man, we should really just kind of force people to, I don't know. I'll just say it, just to be honest with themselves. I'm like, hey, listen, so the beauty of how that worked out is, like, everybody could check that box if they were smart. So, like, even if you didn't have any skills, if whatever you designed for yourself gave you that time frame or that rounds or whatever, like, you get to check that box because that was appropriate for you. So if you're still trying to wrap your brain around this, what we did was, so Cassidy explained it really well, but I'll frame it up a little bit more. So we gave, like, some pretty broad weight ranges in a workout. So for instance, let's say the workout was arbitrarily like, it was like today's workout. So today's workout was it's 3 rounds, 3 minutes of work, 10 pull-ups, and then 3 push press, 3 minutes rest after each round. So it's a total of 9 minutes of work, 6 minutes of rest, for a total of 15 minutes. But in that workout, what we would have done is we would have given people, basically said, we would have given them basically the score. Here's the score I want you to give me. Now you have to make the decision on basically everything else. You have to make a decision on, like, should it be chest to bar pull-ups? Should it be regular pull-ups? What should the number of pull-ups be? You know, and we would give a rep range. Would be like, hey, your rep range is 5 to 10, but I'm not going to tell you what to put on the barbell. Right. And then I think what that forced people to do is think a lot about what they were going to do.
Well, it pushed a lot of people to not only just scale down to their abilities, but even scale up. There's a lot of people who, instead of doing, handstand push-ups to, 2 ab mats under their head, we're doing handstand push-ups, to parallel or to the ground or whatever. Instead of doing pull-ups, doing chest to bar pull-ups, or doing L-sit muscle-ups instead of kneeling because, the transition was too easy and the high ring, they weren't quite there. So we were pushing people past what they thought they were actually capable of doing, which I think a lot of people kind of looked at it as like, oh, we're just trying to scale everybody down. Like we just want to knock everybody down and kind of show them where they're at. And it was actually the opposite. Like we're actually trying to build people up. And a lot of what happens is a lot of people, when we give them that blueprint to kind of start with, they tend to go the easier route because it's more comfortable and your score is going to look better, and all the reasons why we would want to finish a workout faster. And by making them make a little more difficult, they got skills they weren't used to training with. They got to practice movements they weren't used to practicing. They got to mess around with weights that they don't typically get to throw around, and they got to hurt a little bit more. They got to work a little bit longer, work a little bit harder, or push past what they thought was their end zone and keep going, and actually found out what their true limits were.
I thought it was cool. Now, if you're going to try to bite off in this, I will tell you there's going to be some people that do not like it, and there are going to be some gripes about it. And it's largely because there is a certain population, and I have empathy for this, right? So I'm not hating on anybody. There's a certain population in every CrossFit gym who comes there, and they don't come here to think. So you do have to take this into account. I don't know that this is something that you should implement on a daily basis, but I do think it has tremendous value to do once, maybe twice a year, just to kind of, it's probably like a good way to recalibrate everybody's, eyeballs on the whiteboard.
I mean, we do benchmarks multiple times a year. We usually do them twice a year, but it's probably a good idea to do this once to twice a year, just because as the benchmarks improve, people's abilities improve, and they might not see it day to day or week to week or month to month. So it's a good idea to throw it in there occasionally, just to open their eyes of, hey, this is where you're actually at. And a lot of times, again, it's better than they think they are.
And I thought it was fun from a creative standpoint because you can, from a programming standpoint, there were some workouts that were, I think there was one in there that was a chipper. I have to go back and look at it. But we gave people, I think the rep range that we gave on the chippers was like
30 to 50.
40. I mean, it was
40 to 60.
It was a big rep range. We're like, hey, anything in this rep range is appropriate, and you can make this you get to dial up whatever you want. But here's what we want you to achieve when you're done. And, I think largely we got some, the groans we got were not that like, this is stupid. It was just kind of like, I don't like it because it's different. But I don't think but I got a lot of positive feedback on it because there's a lot of people that did some stuff they didn't.
What's funny is when we switched back to the RX Plus, RX, and fitness, it was like, well, what happened to that? And then people were upset because we weren't doing that anymore.
Hey, man.
Same people who were complaining about switching to it were the same ones that were complaining that we went back to it.
The troops are not happy if they're not complaining. All right, cool. So the scaling portion, I think that's a good segue. So you just went through the adaptive course, and I'm curious on your thoughts on that. So I've worked with Kevin Ogar. So if you don't know Kevin Ogar from the CrossFit community. He's a wheelchair athlete due to an accident at a functional fitness competition. I'll get that right. And but he works in seminar staff now. Phenomenal dude. But him and Alex have kind of created this program through HQ, and it's a pretty awesome program. But first, I want to. So a lot of people, actually, most people probably don't know this about you, and why that is kind of I don't say a passion for you, but like
it means something to me. So most people don't know this is my brother's in a wheelchair. So he was involved in a motorcycle accident 12 years ago. He was in the Navy. He got home from deployment on a Friday, wrecked his motorcycle Saturday, wheelchair. So he was home about 12 hours and then in a wheelchair. So that was when I was a sophomore, junior in high school. And so he's been in a wheelchair for for 12 years now, 12 or 13 years, completely independent. So he had a T5 and 6 and 7 tear, just completely tear. So he's paralyzed from basically sternum down, no movement, no control. Broke all his ribs, collapsed his lung. From what I understand of it, is his heart and lungs stopped on the helicopter ride down to the hospital, and then again once he was in the ER. Luckily, he was resuscitated, made as well of a recovery as he can. He has 2 steel rods up his spine to actually stabilize his spine, and I think he could be...
Is that just to keep him upright, basically?
It's just to keep his spine safe, and I'm pretty sure he could have had him removed years ago. That was more just during the initial injury, but I think the number of surgeries he's gone through, I think he's just tired of
over it.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt or make him better having him in or out, so what's the point?
Yeah.
And they took bone out of his hip to put it into his spine. He has like I said, he broke all of his ribs. I think he broke his leg. Wasn't wearing, background on it, idiot. He wasn't wearing his helmet, his gloves, his jacket, like literally nothing. From what I got from
I didn't know that.
Yeah, wasn't wearing anything. So the backstory of it, so in Boise, Idaho, there's a mountain range called Bogus Basin. It's just a ski resort, literally 5 minutes outside of downtown. And it's a big windy trail, just like every ski resort is. And so he was riding his motorcycle, and they were doing Porsche races. So like guys that have Porsches in Boise, like they kind of just race up and down. So he was running walkie-talkies up for him, and he doesn't remember if he caught gravel, if he took a bad turn or what, but off a cliff. And it was I talked to the guy who collected his motorcycle, said it was about a 50, 60-foot cliff, and then where he landed, his spine shifted. So 5 or 6, whichever one was on top, shifted to the side and below. So his spine then chicaned down, did an S down. And then, so that's what happened with that. Woke up in the hospital, and then he did about a year physical therapy. Ended up going to, luckily, like the way it happened, he was taken care of with the Navy, went to school, graduated. Now he lives in San Diego. He lived in LA for about a year, hated it, went back to San Diego because it's San Diego. I'd live there too if I could. And he's doing well. Has 2 dogs, has a house. He's a photographer. He's doing his thing. So I've always had a pretty high empathy level because I've experienced it all secondhand of not being able to stand or walk or, having to get help up a curb or in and out of a vehicle and all that. So it's always been something that's been pretty close to me. I've always tried to find a way to, once I got into coaching and CrossFit, of how we can try and implement that. And then they came out with the adaptive course about a year ago. It's fairly new. And that was one, like,
it's been revised at least once
as soon as it's on the East Coast and I can travel there, like that's the one I'm going to take. So it just happened to work out, went and took it, and I think that's probably my favorite course I've taken. I've taken probably 6 or 7 specialty courses, and that's probably
why
the specialty courses.
No. Why is that your favorite?
I felt like as a coach, well, one, I now have a better understanding of how to train an entirely different population who I think are not really looked at or looked after in the community just because people don't know how. So I got a lot of knowledge to be able to now help
overwhelming.
A whole new level of people.
Super overwhelming. I remember the first couple times I worked with Kevin. If you're not around, well, I'll use Kevin as an example, or just somebody who is in a chaired athlete. Like, it's kind of awkward. You don't really know, like, when to help or what to do. You're like, can you do this by yourself? Like, I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I just feel like a completely useless piece of trash right now.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of that because, like, my brother, he wants to be as independent as he can be. So, like, he hates getting pushed. Like, it doesn't matter if you're going up a hill, it's straight up. He's like, I'll figure it out. Like, he hates getting assistance. It's like, hey, do you want me to grab your bag? And he's like, no, I got it. He's, got bags stacked over his head as he's trying to wheel his way around. And it's exactly like that because you want to help because, you just want to help. But at the same time, you don't want to offend them by being like, oh, you can't do this without me. And so there's a fine line of doing that. And I think by taking that course, it's the same thing with training of, we want to help people. We want to get people as functional as they can because it's at a certain point, it's not even about fitness. It's just about being functional and independent. And, you want to help without saying the wrong things or doing the wrong things or offending people, because it will be offensive no matter. You'll find a way to mess it up somehow.
What I thought was interesting, and it's honestly been rattling around in my brain ever since you told me this, but the
Sound.
not the sound, but like some of the and I think we're pretty cognizant of verbiage in here, but you brought up something that I do very regularly, which is say things like, if you can't do this, we'll do this. And then when you brought that up, I realized how I probably say that 4 times a class. So hundreds of times a month, basically. And I've been really trying to not say that and trying to figure out other ways to express what I want to happen, but it's hard.
I found this out, and it kind of brought it. I was more aware of it after the course as well, but I stopped looking. And this is before the course. I started looking at. We always want to give people wins, and I kind of learned that from taking the kids course.
Yep.
You always want to leave them with a win, and just the way we kind of speak to people will give them a loss by, hey, Jason, you can't do a muscle up, so you're going to go do transitions or whatever. So then it was a year ago, a couple of
Not
years
even
ago,
that aggressively, just like, hey, if you can't do this, we
started bringing
this.
on the bus stop idea.
Yeah.
And if, for you guys who don't know, the bus stop idea is when you're going through scales. Let's say I'm already talking about muscle up. So when you're going through like the muscle up, instead of starting at the muscle up and then working your way down, go the opposite way. Everybody starts at the most basic type of scale you could think about for it, and then you gradually work your way up.
Everybody is the key piece here, though.
So it doesn't matter if it's, Rich Froning and my brother in the same class, like they're both going to be starting on the exact same piece. And then like, all right, as we move on, if we can do like, if we're going to move on from here, we're going to stay here and keep working on this. If we're moving on, we're going to go to the next piece. And then you leave your athletes there, continuing to practice that piece while you drop the next person off at the next stop of whatever that might be on the scale of difficulty. And as you're doing that, you keep doing the checkbacks of like, oh, that looks good, we keep the rings together, or whatever it might be. Still doing the checkbacks, but everybody's getting to work on something as they're progressing through the difficulties. So you don't have 9 people standing around watching the one dude do muscle ups, and then everybody else is like, all right, the rest of you who can't do this, now let's go do this, and you just keep doing muscle ups. It's one, they get skill practice from the basic one, and they get to refine the basics, and 2, everybody's going to be working to their appropriate level as you ramp up to where they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using that for a long time, ever since I put it on since I did that video for Jerk Blog Talk, but I use that terminology, if you can't do this, then we're going to do that, a lot in the WOD briefs, or when I'm talking like through some of the warm-ups, whether it's specific or general warm-up. And I've been really trying. It's hard, man. Like
It takes a lot of thinking.
No, it takes a lot of, it takes a ton of forethought to not do that.
It takes a lot. And it's not even that. It's not even that you mean anything by it of like, if you can't do this, because I mean, everybody knows what you're trying to say, but it's just being smart with your words. So one of the biggest things out of tying it back to the adaptive course is talking about impairments. Like maybe I have a member who comes in and they were in a high military area. Maybe they lost a leg or something. So instead of saying maybe they can't run or something, instead of saying, hey, instead of using your bad leg or your good leg, instead of using good versus bad, it's sound versus impaired. Like you're finding a way to. It's not necessarily a disability, but it's just, it's not to the level of the other one. So instead of saying, hey, one side's better than the other, or you're a better athlete than this person, it's, hey, your impaired side, your sound side. And that can be tied to everybody in the gym, not even just, we'll call it a special population, but not even a population, but you can use that for everything.
Well, I've done a better job with it for things like, so the other scenario is, let's say, for instance, you have an athlete, let's say running isn't the workout, and you have somebody that for whatever reason is not going to run because they have an injury. So instead of saying, hey guys, we're going to go 400 meter run, if you can't run, go ahead and get on the bike. Yeah. So instead of using that verbiage when I say, if you can't run, what you brought up was say, hey, my runner's over here, all my people on the bike over here. And it's not like you're over here because you can't do it. It's not
a better. There's no hierarchy to it.
Yeah, but still, it's something that's just like little stuff like that. I think makes a big difference. What's funny about it is though, nobody's really going to notice. Like they're going to notice, but they're not going to understand what it is.
Right.
It's like they're. I would imagine that most people have some sort of feeling when you say, if you can't do this, go over here, and they're like, you probably realize that you can't do that,
Yeah.
but it's still like somewhat
It's
offensive
that little
to
stab
you.
of
Yeah, even though it's not
they
set
know
with,
they know what you mean when you're doing it, but it's still just that little.
yeah,
like,
it's not. It wasn't said with any malice or like negative intent, but just not doing that. I
still
think
stings.
just-
It's that reminder.
yeah. So that's been something that I've been really trying to work on. It's just like avoiding using terms like that. But I think I did it today.
What started all this? Scaling.
Yeah, scaling, and then and then the adaptive stuff.
So with
and what some stuff you learned there.
So with the adaptive, as far as scaling, it depends what the impairment is or what the level of it is. For the most part, it can come down to how you would scale anybody who comes in with a broken leg, or maybe they have a sprained ankle or something. If it's like a one leg athlete, or depending on where the injury is at, you pretty much scale for the most part that exact same way. The only difference is if you have maybe somebody who has a shoulder or lost a limb on their arm, they still have a little bit of that limb. Obviously, they're not going to be able to use it as much during the workout, but you want to provide a scale to where they're obviously primarily using their sound limb, but still able to get some work with maybe the impaired limb. And that might not even be during the workout, but providing accessory work after. If, again, like I'm using the example of a high bicep,
elbow, yeah.
You're not really going to be able to do a lot of shoulder to overhead with the barbell. So maybe you switch to a dumbbell with the one arm, and then when you're done, hey, we're going to do a lighter plate or lighter dumbbell, more controlled, just still getting that same training in.
Just trying to lift some load with that limb.
Correct. Because you still want to have your training symmetry. We don't want to just because it's not there doesn't mean we don't want to train the shoulder and the pec and the stability around it all. Like, we still got to get as much of it as we can because
they still have to use
outside
it.
of the gym, they're still going to be using it. Exactly. Same thing with legs and ankles. Depending on where it's at, it just kind of changes what the accessory is. And if you can use it, you want to use it. It doesn't matter to what extent, but if we're, say, doing a bench press in a class, and maybe it's a dumbbell on one arm, or if they can control a barbell, they're doing that. And on that one impaired side, they're using a lighter dumbbell or a plate or something. Still just go through that same range of motion, because if you have it, you want to use it. Just like you already said, if they're not in the gym, they're still gonna have to use it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better population of people who this is like has massive effect on like how they live the rest of their life.
Well, so I learned, and I knew a lot of this, but we kind of talk about it, like in the level one, it's brought up, when we're talking just in general, it's brought up, and it's brought up again, it kind of light bulb during the adaptive course was, the two things that typically put a person in a chair into a home is either they can't pick themselves up if they fall, or if they can't physically take care of themselves, like wipe themselves or take care of growth, or like little things. And so a lot
Stuff
of
that you and I don't ever think about.
yeah, like those are the two things, and one of the big things I learned is like those are the two things that will typically put someone in a home. And so like I related to my brother, who's 30 years old. He's 3 years older than me, and like he could potentially be in a home at 35, 40 years old simply because if he fell out of his chair, he couldn't pick himself up. And besides that,
He cannot.
No, he can, but if he could not.
If he could not, yeah.
If he could not. And so it took a lot of convincing. So I met Alec for the first time at the trainer clinic in December when we all went out to the ranch.
The new hire summit. Yeah.
So
okay.
he's been on the adaptive circuit for a while, and he's fairly new to the level one staff. And
I think he's like a year in, maybe.
And so he doesn't do a whole lot of level ones because he's the director of adaptive. And so we met there, and just had a conversation. He's like, "Oh, I'm on the adaptive team," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Started talking about my brother, and he's like, "Oh, well, I'm the director of the program." I was like, "Oh, well, that's awesome. This is my brother." Come to find out, he lives in San Diego. Oh, my brother lives in San Diego. So after a lot of talking, I took all this information and just threw it at my brother. And it was probably too much, just like shotgun to the face of information of what you need to do, which never works out for anybody. Took a lot of convincing. Finally got him like, I want to do it. I don't want to do it. Okay, I'm in. I don't want to do it. And I came to find out months later after I took the course myself of, he was afraid to do it, which totally understandable. Just like a lot of people who come into a CrossFit gym for the first time, they're completely out of their element. They don't know the people. They don't know what they're doing. They're comfortable in their lifestyle.
And this is times 100.
Yep. And then, multiply that times infinity, because my brother personally, he's a very shy person, and he always has been, always was, even as a kid, even teenager before his accident. Now the accident happens to the infinite degree. So then take that, and he's a very artsy person, photography, computer games. Like, he's very a homebody. Hey, go talk to people and go do physical exertion, which you hate. And so didn't really sell him on that. So I remember I sent him a video of one of Alex's courses, or one of his adaptive classes that he had, and I was like, hey, like, this is kind of what they do. And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to be on an assault bike breathing hard and lifting weights. He's like, that's stupid. Like, you're talking
Effort is for the birds.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly. And then so finally after taking the course, and having more real discussions of like, hey, it's not about that. Like, that's, you comparing yourself to these guys in here is the equivalent of me comparing Dad to the Masters Games athletes. Like, that's completely different sports we're talking about here. Like, for you, it's, play with your dogs, get up the curb easier. If you drop your backpack, being able to pick it up without having to put effort into it. Like, scratch your back, doing some mobility stuff. And so that kind of was like, okay, there's a real reason to do all this. And then it was, I think one of the big kickers was the community aspect of it. One of the biggest things that usually sells people on CrossFit in general is the great community we have, which it hasn't failed me yet of we have a great community, but like, hey, you're going to meet a lot of great people. You're going to meet people who have been through what you've been through. You're going to meet people who haven't been, who have same experiences or worse experiences or, whatever. And so you're going to make some friends. Like, if nothing else, if you never go and, you hate it, maybe you'll make a friend out of it, which you can never have too many friends. So we finally got a conference call, and he agreed to have a meeting with Alec, and it just happened to be right for Wadapalooza. And I think he was like, oh, he forgot about it. But I called him last week, like, hey, when's that meeting with Alec? And he's like, oh, I'll call him. Like, I'll talk to him. And so it's just these small little bribes. Like, I'm sending him out an old laptop of mine. And he's like, well, how much do you want for it? And I was like, you don't have to pay me. I was like, you just have to do X amount of sessions with Alec. And he's like, wait, what? I have to work out for your laptop? And I was like, yeah, like, that's fair. I was like, just meet with him, and
it's free, bro.
I'll determine how many it is, but you just have to meet with him. And he's like, I think I'd rather just pay you. Nope. I was like, I won't accept money. He's like, all right,
your
fine.
money's no good
I'll call him
sir.
next week. So my brother will be working out a couple times with Alec just for a laptop.
That's cool. That's awesome. Cool. I think we're going to wrap this up. Good stuff. If you guys have questions for Cassidy, obviously drop those in here and let us know. But read any books?
Am I reading right now?
Yeah.
I'm currently reading The Daily Stoic.
It's a good book.
I got that one from
Ryan Holiday.
Yep, I got that one from Jason Ackerman when I worked with him, which great dude. Which funny enough, he actually it was the first time I got to work with him. He actually taught my level 1 way back when, or 5-6 years ago, whatever it was.
Yep.
He taught it, and then to be able to work with him, I thought was pretty cool. So we talked a bit, wrote down some books. I'm reading that one, and then I'm also finishing up. It's called Build an A-Team.
Yeah, I think you told me about that.
I've been reading that one for a while, but there's no pictures in it, so it bores me.
You read 2 books at the same time?
Well, Daily Stoic's like a paragraph, so I read that in the morning. I read that in the morning when I'm eating breakfast, and when I put my dogs up, I'll kind of look at it, and then I read the other one usually at night before I go to bed.
Yeah. Podcasts? Any good ones that I don't know about?
I listen to a lot of just Barstool podcasts. So I listen to Part of My Take,
Pat McAfee.
Part of My Take, Pat McAfee, and Foreplay God, which is just a lighter sense on golf. Cool. And then I occasionally bounce around with Joe Rogan if he has an interesting person, or Brute Strength if they have somebody who interests me. But
he had 2 that were good this month. One, Ben Greenfield, was yesterday. That dude's weird. He's injecting things into his wiener and stuff. And then the guy he had yesterday, it's like is he a cosmic? No, he's an age guy. Like he's longevity.
Okay.
But he was saying all sorts of wacky stuff. I'm like, what? What are you doing? Anyway, cool. Last thing, get to ask me any question you want about anything.
Oh, about anything. Ask me another question. I'll think of that one.
Did you register for the Open?
No, I have not yet.
I have.
Well, you had to though, didn't you?
I have not completed the damn judges course though.
I'll yell at Nicole about that one to get on you about that, so we can actually get our team up.
Killing me.
why do you continue to coach CrossFit, both in a gym and on a staff? Because actually, let's just staff. Why do you continue to do the staff when you have a good thing going here and you don't need to travel so much, be away from family or the gym or all that?